We do have companies that will go to a TPA that will create plan documents for their 401k, defined benefit plans, cash balance plans, and we'll help them self-direct a portion of those plans, if not all of it. Now, it's not as widespread as we would hope yet, and that's because oftentimes the company that's sponsoring the 401k, so those employers, they may have a fiduciary liability over that particular plan in order for them to be required to protect the clients and the investors and their employees a little bit more. So essentially, in a nutshell, they're worried that people are going to go out and make an investment that may not be the best for them in the private sector. Because when it comes to self-direction, the investors and our clients, those account owners, are solely responsible for identifying the best investments, doing the vetting and due diligence, and making sure that the diversification in your portfolio makes sense.
Hello, everyone. We're Jacqueline and Melvin Landry, and we welcome you to our podcast, Get Diversified. Throughout these series, we'll cover all the topics and questions you have about investing in apartment buildings, storage facilities, and mobile home parks. Being knowledgeable in these areas will help you feel more comfortable about investing. Apartment investing equals building wealth. Building wealth equals financial freedom. Achieving financial freedom allows you to spend your time with building memories with your loved ones. Let's face it, time is the one element in life that is limited, and you don't want to waste it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Get Diversified. My name is Jacqueline Landry, which I'm sure most of you already know. I am your host today. My husband, Melvin Landry, he's out jogging right now, so I am your solo host for this episode of Get Diversified. So I have Lindsay Mersino with me today. She is with Directed IRA, and welcome, Lindsay, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jacqueline.
Well, I am super excited to have Lindsay here today to talk about self-directed IRA accounts and what it can do for people that want to get into multifamily investing. So, Lindsay, let's start off by talking a little bit about your background so that our viewers can get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely. So way back in the day in 2012, this particular opportunity kind of fell into my lap. I was working at another company in the legal department, and I got wind that a certain leader was looking for someone in their operations team to come in and work on reviewing investment documents, confirming titling was accurate, numbers, all that fun stuff. So took a leap from another industry into this one, and for over 10 years now, I have never regretted that leap. Over the years, I've been able to work in the operations team, on the customer service team. I then led the customer service team and eventually worked my way up to becoming the director of strategic relationships with Directed IRA, which is Matt Sorensen's company. So very excited to be here, and every single day I learn something new in this industry, which really is one of the reasons why I love it so much.
And same here from the multifamily perspective. I have experts like you on the show so that I can learn and then pass that on to our users. So appreciate your time. So let's start getting into the real nuts and bolts of this podcast. So I want you to explain to the users the difference between 401k and a self-directed IRA. And then we're going to kind of talk about the benefits if those don't actually come out.
Absolutely. So a lot of people know what a 401k is, and a lot of people have heard about what an IRA is. But what we want to focus on today is the difference between a normal, traditional 401k that you may have with your current or prior employer, and how that differs between the types of IRAs that we establish at Directed IRA. So with your standard 401k plan, you're going to have that at an institution that allows you to invest into the stock market. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, those are typically what people will invest into utilizing their retirement account. However, a lot of people don't fully understand the stock market, or they don't like the volatility of the stock market. And that's really where the self-directed retirement accounts such as the self-directed IRA, come into play. When you've got a self-directed IRA, you actually get to invest in assets and investments that you know and understand a little better. What I mean by that is a self-directed IRA can invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, but even better, it can invest in private arrangements and private investments of your choice. So when somebody has a 401k at a traditional firm, they would then actually decide, hey, I want to invest in something more concrete, maybe real estate as an example. That's one of the big ones we see every single day. So believe it or not, you can actually use your 401k to fund a self-directed IRA potentially to invest into real estate. So we see a lot of people leaning in that direction, especially when the stock market is so volatile and they're not fully comfortable with how it's performing. So people go from a mutual fund giving them a lucky 2% return. They jump over to real estate and start to see much higher returns typically.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know that when we first, so we were one of those folks that they were ignorant to the fact that there was even this thing called the self-directed IRA. So the minute we heard about it and the benefits of it, and that we can earn more money than a traditional 401k, we were like, let's go. Let's get all of our money out of our 401ks if we can. And
Yeah,
let's get that into a self-directed IRA so that we can invest that in multifamily. And that's pretty much, as you know, we've had other conversations that we're investing in now, but we are going to start continuing to diversify into debt funds, possibly self-storage, mobile home parks. So we're really excited that we'll have the opportunity to do that with our 401k money once it's moved
absolutely.
to a self-directed IRA. So talk to us a little bit about the asset classes that you can invest in with a self-directed IRA.
Yeah. So before I jump into that, there was one thing that you said, Jacqueline, that really caught my ear. And that was, I didn't know that this was possible. And I got to say, that's something I hear all day, every day. And if I had a dime over the last 10 years for every time someone said that to me, I'd be retired early. So you're not
Yes.
alone in that. This is definitely an area that is just unfortunately just not really well known. So that's one of the main reasons, of course, as to why you and I are here today to help spread that self-directed knowledge. But yeah,
So,
jumping right
so we
into those
before we
asset
get in
classes, I would
before we get
say,
into before we get into those other asset classes, you just struck another thought in my head. So why aren't companies
yeah,
allowing their employees to just go into do a self-directed IRA versus a 401k? Like why isn't that something that
yeah.
companies are thinking about right now? Or is that not even possible?
That's a great question. So I will tell you that it actually is possible. We do have companies that will go to a TPA that will create plan documents for their 401k, defined benefit plans, cash balance plans, and will help them self-direct a portion of those plans, if not all of it. Now, it's not as widespread as we would hope yet, and that's because oftentimes the company that's sponsoring the 401k, so those employers, they may have a fiduciary liability over that particular plan in order for them to be required to protect the clients and the investors and their employees a little bit more. So essentially, in a nutshell, they're worried that people are going to go out and make an investment that may not be the best for them in the private sector. Because when it comes to self direction, the investors and our clients, those account owners, are solely responsible for identifying the best investments, doing the vetting and due diligence, and making sure that the diversification in your portfolio makes sense. It is up to you to work with your CPA or tax professional. And so they worry about that piece, which is very understandable. So in a nutshell, they're trying to protect the employees when in reality, a lot of those employees may be ready to make that leap,
They don't
but
know.
they
Okay,
don't get
good.
that
All
decision.
right, now on to the asset classes. Thanks for clarifying that to me because it just popped in my head. Well, why aren't companies doing this? Because that could eliminate the transaction of transferring it over and doing the paperwork and all of that other stuff. Just make it a lot simpler. But thanks for that. So talk to me about the asset classes and what you're seeing people are investing in.
Yeah, so Absolutely. So we see such a wide range of different asset classes out there. It'll blow your mind what I'm about to share with you because there's just such a wide range. But what I will say is that there's a very short list that the IRS has shared of things that you cannot invest into. So in turn, we take that list of what you cannot invest into, and everything else is
Mm,
essentially fair game. So, just a couple of things that you cannot invest into. So, your IRA cannot be an investor or a shareholder
okay.
of an S corporation. And that's just because of the way that the S corps are designed. You also cannot invest in life insurance contracts. So, those are also off the table, which I like to mention because 401ks can,
Okay.
but IRAs cannot. And then the last thing that IRAs cannot do is they can't invest in collections or antiques of any kind. So collectibles are off the table, including this tequila collection behind me. Can't do
So
that
no
within
artwork
an
either?
IRA.
Is that
So
considered a
that's
collectible? Okay.
correct. Yeah, it is. Yep. So no collectibles, no antiques, unfortunately. So those are the things that the IRS says you cannot invest into these different asset classes. So, in other words, everything else is fair game. We see people invest into multifamily properties, single family properties, short term fix and flips, and rentals. But some of the more fun ones that we see are people invest in
Oh, wow.
cattle. You may have heard one of our co founders, Mark Kohler. He loves sharing this story. He recently, in the last 2 years, he purchased a few cows. He now lives up in Idaho, so it was some cattle
Awesome.
from the area. And after the price of meat went up, he decided to sell. So he made a profit in his IRA using
Wow.
cows. So again, to really get your wheels turning on what all you can invest into, but it doesn't stop there. We also see people invest into precious metals, cryptocurrency. People do private lending.
Wow.
The
Well,
list goes
fantastic.
on.
And so that just brings up, I mean, before we had the show, we chatted a bit. I was just at this event called Women Funding the World, and there was folks that did everything from A to B, venture capitalists, filmmakers, um, you name. There was a retired NFL person there, and I wonder if they know about this. So, I think there was a lady that has been in the cannabis business for quite some time. She was amazing. She was, I think, about 75 years old, and was just super fun and probably making a lot of money as well. So I would love to share this with them to be like, hey, did you know that if you have a 401k that's sitting around from years and years ago when you were working your W-2, that you can actually transfer your money into a self-directed IRA? Okay. All right. Well, that's awesome. Maybe we'll go on and buy some
Absolutely.
cattle too. I kind of like that idea. So another fun
No.
fact
Yeah.
is just about me is I had in my internal audit days at Arthur Anderson, I was in Egypt, and there was a guy who was seriously an older man, probably 25, 30 years older than me, said, I want to buy you as my wife. And he was talking to my boss, which at the time I was in his 60s, and he was like, I'll offer you 3 camels and 2 sheeps and 3 cows. So I was like, I was honored
Sounds like a
because I know
great.
that investing in those kind of things keeps producing things, right? So it's just not a one-time transaction, but it's actually, animals that keep producing things so you can continue building wealth. So anyways, that's just like a sidebar. So anyway, so let's talk about if somebody's interested in moving their 401k to a self-directed IRA, how do they go about doing that? Like, what is the process? Is it, talk about, what's involved in that?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at making that jump from the normal, boring investment world of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and leaping into some private investments, there's a couple of questions that you want to ask yourself to make sure that you're qualified in order to move that 401k into a self directed IRA. The number one question is going to be, are you still employed by the company that sponsors that 401k plan? If the answer is no, fair game. You're able to move that account over to an IRA at your leisure, with some very little exceptions, the NFL being one of them. They actually do have an age clause in there where they cannot remove it until they reach the age
Okay.
of 45, I believe. But the majority of 401k plans, once you've departed that particular employer, you can certainly move it to an IRA. So let's kind of talk about what that looks like, and then we can jump back to if the answer is yes, I'm still employed. So if you've got that 401k plan and you're no longer employed, they will be able to release those funds via a rollover to an IRA. So the very first step is you would need to establish a self-directed IRA, such as with Directed IRA. And that's done through a simple online application like you would with any larger institution or bank out there. Once you've set up your IRA, you're then going to contact the 401k's administrator, so the financial firm that's holding on to that particular plan for you, and you're going to let them know you want to do a direct rollover to a new IRA. They're going to have maybe a form for you. Some of them take that instruction just over the phone in just a few moments. But you're going to initiate that request with them and tell them you want to move funds from the 401k to the IRA. And that again is referred to as a rollover. Once the funds arrive in your IRA, that's when all the fun begins, and we handle all of the tax forms for you as the custodian of your IRA. So you don't have to worry about all of those pieces. But that's when you've got the balance, and that's when you get to start having some fun by making some investments into things that you know and that you're more familiar
Awesome.
with.
And now, how long does that process take on average? I know that there's probably a disparity or a range of time that between certain companies taking their time and trying to transfer it.
Yeah.
But what's your average amount of time you see in
yeah.
taking this transfer to get complete?
Yeah, so we typically see someone take 2 to 4 weeks from the moment they establish their account until the moment that their first investment is made. So 2 to 4 weeks is a really good ballpark, but to your point, we've seen people do it in 5 days. So definitely a wide range there, but 2 to 4 weeks is a good estimate for you.
So if you have a deal that you want to invest in, particularly our deal, hint, hint, leave yourself at least, 2 to 4 weeks to make sure that you have your paperwork in place before you can actually make the investment. So, all right. So now the money's in an IRA. It's sitting at Directed IRA. And I want to make an investment as an investor. How easy or hard is that to do?
Oh, it's very easy. Now, I may be biased because I've been doing it for 10 years, but the beauty of that is we've got a lot of people on our team here that walk you through every step that I'm about to go through. So you're not alone in any of this. We're not expecting you to memorize our paperwork front and back, but we do like to keep it as simple as possible. So once you've got your IRA established and funded and you're ready to make that next step into placing an investment, we're going to gather from you one document that's called a direction of investment form. That's our internal form that tells us that you're giving us permission to send out your money for this particular investment. And then we're also going to gather all of the investment documents as well. I say investment documents, that's kind of vague, but if we look at an example such as maybe you're investing into a fund, and you've got a subscription agreement, what we're going to ask for is all of the documents that company would typically provide a standard investor. We're going to want to see copies of that as well as your custodian. Now, we're not looking at these documents to vet the investment. That is up to the clients to do. It is their sole responsibility. But what we're going to look for are any red flags or issues that the IRS may have with this. And we're going to make sure it's administratively feasible for us to process the transaction for you. So if you're investing into a fund, we would gather something like an operating agreement as well as a subscription agreement. And the key is that the investor or subscriber is not going to be your name. So instead of it saying Jacqueline Landry is investing into this opportunity, it's going to read Directed Trust Company for the benefit of Jacqueline Landry's Roth IRA or IRA. And that's one of the biggest things that we see people mess up on a regular basis is they'll put their name in there and send it off to us for a review. But again, that's why we've got this team here to walk you through every step of the way. We'll catch any errors or titling issues like that, make sure it's all corrected from day one so your paper trail is nice and clean. And on that particular document, your IRA is the investor or subscriber. So what that means is you as Jacqueline are not signing those documents because you're not the investor. Your IRA is. So directed IRA even alleviates you of having to sign documents.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Can't make it easier than that, right? So you send us the documents, you send us the directive to say, yes, go ahead and place this investment. We receive all of it, make sure everything looks good. We execute it with your permission, and we send out the wire.
So, all right. So I'm an investor. I said, hey, I want to put $100,000 with Jackie and Melvin on their new multifamily. So what happens when there's a cash distribution that's made on a quarterly basis? Where does that money go? And what do you need from the investor so that it goes to the right place?
Yeah, great question. So when you receive earnings from an investment, again, you, Jacqueline, are not the investor, so the funds cannot go directly to you. Within the investment documents, though, that's where we're going to indicate the banking information for your IRA. So every distribution, every interest payment, every maturity, every principal payment, that's always going to come back to your IRA at Directed IRA. And if we're lucky, the investment documents are going to specify for us, hey, you're going to get 4 interest payments, this year, 1 per quarter, and then we'll return the principal after that term or whatever the terms are. So we'll leverage those investment documents to identify when a check or a wire comes into us. We'll use that to confirm exactly how it's to be allocated to your account for tax purposes or no tax purposes. So that's what we'll do on your behalf. We'll accept those deposits so you don't even have to worry about, did I get that ACH? Did I get that check? You'll see that it just appears into your IRA with us.
So one of the things that I had a question about early on is, when you invest in multifamily, if you invest with cash, the cash comes directly to you and you actually get a tax benefit. So I said, the tax benefit is one of the real reasons that we're in multifamily is we love that negative K1 that reduces our taxable income. But I just wanted to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I have a little bit of a misunderstanding, is with a directed or with the IRA, there is no additional tax benefits because your investment is already sheltered from taxes. Is that correct?
That's spot on, Jacqueline. So unfortunately, you can't double dip on the tax benefits, but you do still get them since it's all within the IRA. Everything that you're doing is going to be tax deferred. But if you have a Roth IRA, it's going to be tax free. So definitely still getting some tax benefits, just looks a little different than if you were to do it with
a Roth
cash.
IRA, can you invest in alternative investments?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things that people are doing these days is leveraging a Roth IRA to make investments in the private sector. And the really big reason for that is because, again, it's going to grow tax-free. Tax deference is great, but if you can grow a Roth IRA exponentially over the years and you're then able to take out income in your retirement age and not pay taxes, that's where the real power comes into play. And that's where you'll see a lot of other higher net worth individuals that you may hear about, like Mitt Romney, Peter Thiel. We read about it in the news all the time. They grew their wealth tax-free using a Roth IRA. So yes, a Roth IRA can be used to invest in alternative investments as well.
Because I'm not sure if his head is in the same place. Roth. Okay, fantastic. All right, so let's just kind of end this. So I know you kind of alluded to your great team that walks anybody through this transfer process. What else is there that's the one thing that stands out about Directed IRA that sets you apart from other companies that do this sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that there's actually 3 main components that I find that we're really different in. So number one is service. Like you said, the team. I'm impressed on a day-to-day basis with how hard this team works for our clients. that service level that we really pride ourselves on reflects very clearly in our over 500 five-star Google reviews that are online for everyone to go check out. That's definitely something that we pride ourselves on. But that service level is also tied to how quickly and efficiently we move as a custodian. I know that there's other custodians out there that maybe take a little longer to do things, and it may not be detrimental to you and your investment, but it very well may be. If you request an investment to be made on a Monday and they don't get back to you and you can't return phone calls promptly and things like that, you may lose the entire deal. So we take that very seriously. We take the investment step the most serious out of all of it because we know that that's your future in our hands. So you'll notice within those 500 plus five-star Google reviews, many of them mention our investment processing team. They don't just email you a day or two later. If there's an issue, they call right away and really do their best to make sure that this investment request is efficiently
Awesome.
completed. And then the third point that I think really sets us apart from others is our co-founders. We were founded by Matt Sorensen, who's a tax attorney by trade, and also his partner, Mark Kohler, who's a CPA. And between the two of them, what a powerhouse. Although they just started the company a couple of years ago, they've been around the self-directed IRA space for over a decade. So they essentially wrote the book on self-direction. And so Matt Sorensen has a book called the Self-Directed IRA Handbook. And I'll tell you, I've worked for competitors. They all use that book to train their team members,
Awesome.
their new employees. So that says a lot. It really helps people understand the basics and some advanced concepts about self-directing. And it's really powerful. So having two leaders that have been in the industry for so long and are really proficient and known as the best in what they do goes a long way as well. We can literally call them on our cell phones and get them on the line if needed. They're very accessible to us here at that Directed IRA. And I think that really sets us apart quite a lot because it allows us to remove red
Awesome.
tape
And yeah, that's
waiting.
super important. And I love the fact that you still do this thing, which is a phone call, right? If there's questions or if there's a serious problem, because so
Yes.
many people today, I think, are so just, everything needs to be done through technology, and the old fashioned telephone can probably get it done a lot faster. So I love the fact that you guys aren't afraid to like pick up the phone and work it out or talk it out with your client so that they can get the transaction transferred. So anyways, cool. Well, let's kind of wrap this up here. How can people find more about you, Lindsay, or about Directed IRA if they have additional questions?
Absolutely. So before I touch on that, Jacqueline, I did also want to just make sure I mentioned that 401k to IRA movement. We went over earlier how if you have a 401k from a prior employer, that 401k is very portable and can be moved. If you are with an employer still that has a 401k plan for you, oftentimes you're not able to access those funds to roll them to an IRA. But on occasion, there are clauses and exceptions. So I always encourage everyone to still ask just in case. We are seeing it more and more commonly these days because 401k plans are, to our point earlier, they're finally getting it that people are wanting this as a feature. So oftentimes what we'll see is an in-service rollover clause. So that's an option potentially if you're still employed and want to move the funds. And then we also sometimes see age limits as well. So the employer may have the 401k administrator add a clause in there that says, hey, if you're still employed with us at 60, you can do a rollover to an IRA because you've reached the retirement age of 59 and a half per the IRS. So there are still clauses that could be uncovered within your 401k plan, even if you're still employed, as to whether or not you're able to roll that into an IRA. So always double check. Just in case before you
Awesome
bypass
point.
that particular option. But yeah, so just in order to contact me, I'd love to speak to anybody and help answer any questions about self-direction. We're all about education here at Directed IRA. So we love to hear different scenarios that people are trying to accomplish or any investment ideas that they're kind of toying with. And we can kind of walk through the steps of what that would look like if it's possible or if it's not possible. So in order to reach me, you're welcome to email me at lindsay.mersino@directedira.com. You can also visit our website at directedira.com as well. We've got a lot of educational resources on there, webinars, podcasts, etc., if you want to learn more about self-directing. And of course, my direct phone number, which is 602-932-3564. I always offer my HubSpot calendar to everyone who emails me so that you can access it anytime to book a phone call. And otherwise, just give us a call on the main at the office as well.
Woo-hoo. What a great show. Thank you, Lindsay, for all your great knowledge. I learned a few tidbits as well. And hopefully our listeners are now much more educated on investing and how they can use their 401k more efficiently and effectively than the traditional ways that they may know about. So thank you again for joining our show, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much for your time, Jacqueline.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.